Mr. ABD Mrs. Wonder lived in the United States of America. They had both migrated there 20 years ago and had met at a birthday party. It's been 15 years since they had married and had 3 children. Leah, the first child, was 13 years, followed by Mimi, who was 10 years, and Charlie, the last-born, was 8 years. Life was good for the Wonders. Mr. Wonder worked as a truck driver and was on the road most of the time. Mrs. Wonder owns African Shop, where she sells foodstuff and other things from Africa. She was successful with her business. The children attended a good school. The parents were proud of the kids and their achievements. During the summer break of the year 2015, Mr. and Mrs. Wonder decided to take their children to Africa on a holiday. They wanted the children to meet their grandparents and also to know their roots. They told the children about their plans. Leah, the eldest daughter, was not happy about the trip. She was looking forward to spending the summer holidays with her friends. The day for departure came, and they boarded a plane back home. The family back home were happy to see them. They stayed in the city for a week with Mrs. Wonder's family before leaving for the village where the parents of Mr. Wonder lived. His family were farmers. They lived on a very big land. They lived in a small village, very far away from the nearest town. The village had a school, a small shop, and also a clinic. There was not much there. Most of the villagers were farmers. The Wonder family spent 2 weeks in the village. It was quiet and peaceful. The children bonded with their grandparents. 13 years old, Leah does not know it yet, but her life was about to change drastically. She woke up one morning, and the house was unusually quiet. Her siblings were not in the room with her, and she also couldn't find her parents anywhere. Her grandparents told her that her parents had gone back to the city and would be back for her. Leah was confused. Why would her parents go to the city without her? She stayed with her grandparents for another whole week, but her parents never returned. The truth is, her parents were never coming back because they were already back in the States. It was no accident that they had left her there. That was their plan all along. They had planned the whole thing. They wanted Leah to spend some time in the village so that she would learn about the culture and also help the grandparents. Mr. Wonder was the only child, and his parents lamented about not having access to his children. They complained that their grandchildren would not learn the culture and values of their roots. They made so much fuss about it that Mr. Wonder decided to pacify them by leaving Leah behind. They reasoned that staying in Africa will be good for Leah. They would later come back for her. Leah was very upset when SGE eventually realized that her parents are now in the States and are not zooming back for her. Her grandparents were determined that they would treat her just like any other child in the village. Her day begins at the crack of dawn, with the sounds of roosters crowing and villagers starting their day. Breakfast usually consisting of porridge made from maize, millet, or sorghum flour, with a cup of tea, coffee, or just water. Families gather around the early morning kitchen fires and discuss the events that lay ahead for the day. Leah hated it. After breakfast, Leah sets up about her daily chores. Her grandfather and the male farm helps tend to the livestock, while Leah and the women farm helps fetch water from the streams. Fetching the water is vital, but a very long and tedious task. Leah and the other women from the village often have to walk long distances to get clean water. This labor-intensive responsibility falls on women and girls, who balance heavy water cans on their heads during their long treks. Then Leah would sweep the whole compound and clean the dishes. She would later go to the farm and help. Her grandmother was bent on teaching Leah how to cook African dishes, so she will be in the kitchen with her to prepare dinner on a daily basis. Leah was not happy and depressed. She did not speak the dialect, and that made it even more difficult. She dreams of America, how easy her life was, and wished her parents would exome for her. They never once called, but she suspects they communicate with her grandparents. The grandparents would always tell her that her parents would soon come. She knew they were lying to her. They enrolled her in the wonky school in the village. 2 years went by, and she was now 15 years old and had made a few friends. She became best friends with one of the boys in her class called Mike. He was curious to know why Leah had decided to stay in the village instead of going back to America. Leah told him that it was not her decision and that her parents had abandoned her there due to the request of her grandparents. Mike asked her if she wants to back to America. She told him SGE wants to, but she couldn't because she wouldn't even know where to begin. Mike thought about how Leah can go back to America. One of the teachers told him that Leah can go and seek help at the American Embassy, which was located in the capital city of Accra. Their village near Techiman was very far from the capital city. The distance was 377 kilometers, total of 8 hours drive by bus. The other problem was that neither he nor Leah has the money for transportation. He told Leah about the possibility of the American Embassy helping her. She was excited, but worried about how to get there. She decided to steal some money from her grandparents. She told Mike, and they planned on when to go. The main means of transportation from her village to the next big town where they could board a bus to Accra was by motorbike. Couple guys in the village owns bikes that runs as transport for the villagers. They arranged it with one of the bike owners and pleaded with him to keep it a secret. That fateful day, Leah and Mike sneaked out of the village very early. Everyone was asleep. They arrived at Techiman and quickly boarded a bus to Accra. They arrived at 2 p.m. They asked about how to get to the U.S. Embassy. A man advised them to take a taxi there. They found a taxi driver who took them there. Upon arriving at the embassy, they went to the security post at the gate, and Leah requested to see the right person related to her case. She had no identification to prove she was a U.S. citizen. After about 20 minutes, a young lady came to talk to her. Leah told her story briefly. The lady took her inside, where she was able to tell her story in detail. She gave her full name, date of birth, address, and social security number. She also said she had gotten her U.S. passport early that year. They were able to confirm that she was indeed a U.S. citizen after running her information in the computer. Leah told them about how Mike had helped her in escaping from the village. She gave the rest of the money she had stolen from her grandparents to Mike so he could go back to the village. They said their goodbyes with Leah, promising to write to him after she gets back to America. They hugged for a long time, and Mike left. The embassy staff booked Leah into a hotel. The next day, she was flown back to the States. She was met by Child Protective Services. She was questioned, and SGE told her story in details, how her parents tricked her into going back to Ghana and then abandoning her there in the village. She told about the hardship SG endured and stated that her parents intentionally left her there against her will. They never even discussed their intentions with her to know if SGE wants that or not. Mr. and Mrs. Wonder were fast asleep when they heard a knock on the door. They both went downstairs to the front door. When they opened the door, it was the police. "You are both under arrest for kidnapping a U.S. citizen." They were placed in handcuffs and driven away. The next day, they appeared in court. To their surprise, they saw Leah. They were shocked. The grandparents had told them they couldn't find Leah. They thought she had gone with some friends to the neighboring town. To see her sitting there in the courtroom made them to understand the seriousness of their arrest. Leah told her story to the court. Her parents really did not have much to say. They admitted to taking her to the village under the guise of a vacation. They also admitted to not communicating with her the whole time she was there. They were charged with multiple crimes and given the appropriate punishment. Leah was placed in foster care. The end.